As the warehouse door burst open and smoke flooded in, I, Emily Carter, saw Diaz press a gun to Sophia's head, knowing one wrong move could end her life. I never thought my life could implode on a random Tuesday afternoon, but there I was, Emily Carter, 16 years old, standing in the middle of Crestwood Park with my world crumbling around me. The sun was blazing down like it didn't care, kids were shrieking on the playground, and the air smelled like jasmine and freshly cut grass, a perfect slice of suburban bliss. My older brother Jake, 18 and counting down the days till college, was a few steps ahead of me, his nose buried in his phone as usual. Mom trailed behind us, her flip-flops slapping the pavement. It was the kind of day you'd see in a cheesy family sitcom, until it wasn't. Mom, can we grab some ice cream?" I called out, brushing a strand of hair behind my ear. It's a habit she always said reminded her of herself at my age, back when she was a cheerleader with big dreams and bigger hair. I glanced back, catching her mid-smile as she soaked in the sunshine, her oversized sunglasses perched on her nose like she was auditioning for a Hollywood movie. "Sure, hon," she said, reaching into her purse. "I'll wait right here on this bench." "Don't take too long, rocky road's calling my name." Her voice had that warm, easy lilt I'd grown up with, the one that made our house feel like a safe haven. Jake and I nodded, already halfway to the little ice cream stand by the duck pond. I was thinking about whether to go for mint chocolate chip or stick with my usual vanilla cone. Life was simple, predictable, the way it's supposed to be when you're 16 and summer's stretching out ahead like an endless road trip. That's when it happened. I'd just handed over a crumpled $5 bill to the guy in the striped apron when I turned around, and my heart stopped dead. Across the park, near the old fountain with its chipped cherubs and trickling water, the spot Mom always said was their place, Dad was standing there. David Carter, the guy who'd built our family from the ground up over 18 years, the one who'd taught me how to ride a bike and cheered at every single one of my middle school talent shows. But he wasn't alone. His arm was wrapped around some girl, young, maybe 25, with long blonde hair and a skirt so short it screamed trouble. Before I could even process it, he dropped to one knee, pulling out a velvet box that glinted in the sunlight. Time slowed down, like one of those slow-motion scenes in a blockbuster movie where the hero's about to lose everything. The box popped open, and even from 50 yards away, I could tell the ring inside was a monster, way flashier than the modest band Mom still wore on her left hand. The girl squealed, hands flying to her mouth, and nodded so fast I thought her head might fall off. Dad slid the ring onto her finger, grinning like he'd just won the lottery. My ice cream hit the ground, splattering vanilla all over my sneakers, and I didn't even care. "Jake," I croaked, grabbing his arm. He looked up from his phone, annoyed, until he followed my gaze. His jaw dropped, and the chocolate cone in his hand started dripping down his wrist. "What the hell?" he muttered, but I was already moving, my legs shaking like they might give out any second. I didn't know what I was going to do, scream, cry, punch him, but I couldn't just stand there while my dad threw our family away in broad daylight. He didn't see me coming at first, too busy standing up to pull that girl, Julia, I'd later learn, into a hug. But then he turned, and our eyes locked. For a split second, I saw fear flash across his face, the kind you'd see on a kid caught sneaking cookies before dinner. Then it hardened into something else, defiance, maybe, or just cold indifference. "Emily," he said, my name flat and emotionless, like I was some stranger interrupting his perfect moment. The girl spun around, her flawless face twisting in confusion. "David, who's this?" she asked, her voice high and chirpy, like a cheerleader at a pep rally. I wanted to claw her eyes out, but instead, I kept my cool, barely. "I'm his daughter," I said, my voice steady even though my insides were churning. "He's been married to my mom for 18 years. Her eyes widened, and she stumbled back a step, clutching her new ring like it might vanish. "You said you were divorced," she stammered, turning to Dad for an explanation. He clenched his jaw, the muscle ticking like it always did when he was pissed. "Emily, this is Julia," he said, like that answered anything. And yeah, I told her we were divorced because that's what I planned to do. I just hadn't found the right time yet. The right time? I almost laughed, but it came out as a choke. 18 years, 2 kids, a mortgage, and he couldn't find the right time to tell us he was done, Emily? Mom's voice cut through the haze, soft and shaky. I spun around and saw her standing there, her sunglasses pushed up into her hair, eyes wide with disbelief. Jake was beside her, his fists clenched, chocolate still melting down his arm. Mom, I said, my voice breaking now, I couldn't finish. She didn't need me to. She saw it all, the ring, the girl, the way Dad wouldn't even meet her gaze. Dad finally looked at us, his shoulders squaring like he was ready for a fight. I'm sorry you kids had to find out like this, he said, his tone clipped, rehearsed. But maybe it's better this way, everything out in the open. Out in the open? Like he'd just forgotten to mention he was starting a new life with some chick half Mom's age. Jake stepped forward, his voice raw. What the hell, Dad? What's going on? Dad sighed, rubbing the back of his neck, a move I'd seen a million times when he was dodging something. Jake, I'll explain later. This isn't how I wanted you to know. Julia was backing away now, twisting that stupid ring on her finger like it was burning her. David, She started, then bolted, leaving him standing there like an idiot. He called after her, but she didn't stop. He turned back to us, and I saw anger flare in his eyes, like we were the ones ruining his day. This is exactly why I didn't tell you, he snapped. I knew you'd make a scene. A scene? I wanted to scream until my lungs gave out. You're proposing to someone else in front of us, and we're the problem? I shouted, tears stinging my eyes. Jake moved closer, his fists balled up tight. How could you do this to Mom? To us? Dad's face softened for a second. But only a second. This isn't about your mom or you kids, he said, like that made it better. I need something different now, a fresh start, someone who gets where I'm headed. Someone younger. The words hit like a punch to the gut. Mom was just. What? Old news? I used up part of his past. I looked at Mom, expecting her to break, but she just stood there, pale and silent, her eyes locked on him. So that's it? She finally said, her voice trembling but sharp. 18 years, and I'm obsolete? Dad didn't answer, just turned away. We'll talk later, he muttered, when everyone's calmed down. Then he walked off, leaving us there, me, Jake, and Mom, like we were nothing more than a chapter he'd already closed. The second Dad vanished past the picnic tables in Crestwood Park, I felt like I'd been sucker punched, my whole world spinning out of control. I'm Emily Carter, 16, and right then, I was a mess of rage and heartbreak, rooted to the spot where my family had just shattered. Mom's sunglasses hung limp in her hand, her face pale as death, while Jake stood beside me, his chocolate cone a melted disaster dripping onto his Nikes. The air was thick with jasmine and betrayal, and I couldn't breathe without tasting both. We're going home, Mom said, her voice cracking like a dry twig. She didn't wait for us to answer, just turned and marched toward the parking lot, her flip-flops smacking the pavement like gunshots in the silence. Jake and I trailed behind, shells of ourselves, the park's cheerful chaos fading into a dull roar. The car ride was torture, 20 minutes of dead air, broken only by the AC's hum and some bubblegum pop song on the radio that felt like a cruel joke. I stared out the window, replaying Dad's smug excuse, I need something different now, a fresh start. Different? Like Mom, Jake, and I were some old couch he could dump at Goodwill. Back home, our split-level suburban sanctuary turned into a haunted house. The living room smelled like last night's pizza, the TV still paused on a Netflix show we'd been binging as a family, like that meant anything now. I collapsed onto the couch, kicking off my sticky sneakers, while Jake slumped beside me, scrolling through his phone like it held the secret to fixing this nightmare. Then Mom moved, fast and mechanical, yanking a suitcase from the hall closet. It was Dad's, black, battered from years of business trips I was starting to question. What's she doing? Jake whispered, his voice tight. I didn't answer, I couldn't. My throat was a battlefield, words fighting to get out but choking on fury instead. She hauled the suitcase upstairs, and I heard drawers slamming, hangers clattering. When she came back down, it was stuffed with Dad's life, his pressed suits, those golf clubs he'd drag out for every neighborhood cookout, even the tacky stars and stripes tie he'd wear to 4th of July barbecues, laughing about how patriotism's the best punchline. She didn't stop there. She grabbed his leather dop kit from the bathroom, his stack of car magazines from the coffee table, and shoved them in with a force that made the zipper groan. Each item hit the suitcase like a nail in a coffin, and I watched, mesmerized and horrified, as she erased him from our space. "Mom," I finally said. My voice a rasp, "What's the plan here?" She didn't look at me, just kept folding his favorite flannel shirt, the one he'd worn when we built that lopsided birdhouse for the backyard 2 summers ago. "He's not coming back tonight," she said, flat and final. "Not after that." Jake sat up straighter, his phone forgotten. "So we're just done? Like, that's it?" Mom's hands froze mid-fold, and for a second, I thought she'd break, cry, scream, something. But she just shook her head. "Not yet," she murmured, almost to herself, then she disappeared into the den, Dad's man cave, where he'd watch football and sip craft beer like some suburban king. I followed, curiosity overriding the ache in my chest. She knelt by his desk, fumbling with a drawer I'd never seen her touch. It creaked open, revealing a locked metal box, the kind you'd stash cash or a gun in. My stomach flipped. "Mom, what's that?" I asked, stepping closer. She pulled a tiny key from her jeans pocket, God knows where she'd hidden it, and clicked the lock open. Inside wasn't money or a pistol, but a stack of papers, photos, and a USB drive, all bundled with a rubber band. Her fingers trembled as she lifted the top sheet, a bank statement with numbers that didn't add up, names I didn't recognize, and a logo for Carter Transport, Dad's company. "He's been lying," she said, her voice low and lethal. "Not just about her. About everything." I snatched a photo from the pile, Dad shaking hands with some slick guy in a suit, a warehouse in the background. Another paper caught my eye, an email draft, never sent, promising a big bonus to loyal employees if the company hit its next milestone. I knew those people through Mr. Jenkins, who'd brought his famous chili to our house for the Super Bowl, Ms. Linda, who'd sent me a birthday card every year since I was 10. Dad had stolen from them, too. "Emily, look at this," Mom said, handing me a ledger page scribbled with dates and dollar amounts, thousands, tens of thousands, siphoned from what she called the pension fund. My head spun. "He's been robbing his own people?" I choked out, picturing Mr. Jenkins's goofy grin, Ms. Linda's kind eyes. "How long?" Mom's lips pressed into a thin line. "Months. Maybe years. I found an anomaly in our joint account last fall, thought it was a glitch. But it wasn't." The room tilted. This wasn't just about Julia anymore. Dad wasn't just a cheating jerk. He was a crook, a liar who'd built our cozy life, our Friday pizza nights, our summer trips to the lake, on dirty money. I wanted to puke. Jake stood in the doorway now, his face a storm cloud. "What's going on?" he demanded. I thrust the email at him. "Dad's a thief, Jake. He's been screwing over everyone, not just us." Before he could respond, the front door rattled, Dad's key in the lock at 9:47 p.m., right on time for his usual late meeting excuse. He couldn't get in, the suitcase barricaded the way. "What the hell is this?" he bellowed, shoving it aside. Mom stepped into the hall, holding that damn box like a weapon. "There's something you need to see, David," she said, her voice ice cold. He stormed in, face red, and froze when he saw what she was carrying. "What's that?" he snapped, but his eyes betrayed him, panic, raw and real. "Open it," Mom said, tossing it onto the coffee table. I held my breath as he lifted the lid, his hands shaking now. The photos, the statements, the USB, it all spilled out. and his face went from fury to ash in seconds. "Where'd you get this?" he whispered, barely audible. "Does it matter?" Mom shot back. "What matters is I have it, proof you've been stealing from your employees to fund whatever empire you're chasing." I couldn't stay quiet. "How could you?" I yelled, my voice cracking. "Those people trusted you, we trusted you." He wouldn't look at me, just stared at the papers like they might catch fire and save him. Then my phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "The box is just the start. David's not the only one with secrets. Meet me tomorrow, noon, Cafe Margot." Alone. My blood ran cold. I showed Mom, and her eyes narrowed. "What the hell have you dragged us into?" "David?" she hissed. He didn't answer, just turned and bolted out the door, leaving us with his mess and a ticking clock I didn't understand yet. The moment Dad bolted out the door, leaving that cursed box of secrets splayed across our coffee table, I felt like I'd been dropped into a thriller movie with no script. I'm Emily Carter, 16, and right then, my life wasn't just unraveling, it was sprinting toward a cliff. Mom stared at the empty doorway, her knuckles white around my phone, that cryptic text glowing like a neon warning sign. "Meet me tomorrow, noon, Cafe Margot." Alone. My heart jackhammered against my ribs, a mix of dread and fury churning inside me. Jake paced the living room, muttering curses under his breath, his usual laid-back vibe replaced by something feral. "What do we do now?" I asked, my voice sharper than I meant it to be. Mom didn't answer right away, just handed me back my phone and sank onto the couch, the ledger pages crumpling under her weight. "We can't stay here," she said finally, her tone clipped, like a general rallying troops. "Not with whoever sent that knowing where we live." Her words hit me like a slap. Dad's mess wasn't just breaking us, it was hunting us. I thought of our cul-de-sac, the neighbor's porch lights, the mailbox with Carter family stenciled in Mom's neat cursive. It wasn't safe anymore. She stood up, decisive. "You and Jake are going to Aunt Sarah's. An hour out of town, far enough to buy us time." Jake stopped pacing, his jaw tight. "No way, Mom. I'm not running off while you deal with this psycho alone." I nodded, crossing my arms. "Yeah, we're in this together." But Mom's eyes flashed, the kind of steel I'd only seen when she grounded me for sneaking out to a bonfire party last summer. "This isn't up for debate," she snapped. "I need you safe so I can think straight. Pack a bag, now." We didn't argue after that. I threw some jeans, my favorite hoodie, and a toothbrush into my backpack, my hands shaking so bad I dropped my phone twice. Jake grumbled the whole time, stuffing his duffel with enough clothes for a week. By 11 p.m., we were in the car, Mom's old Honda weaving through the dark streets toward Aunt Sarah's place in Willow Creek. The radio stayed off, no pop songs could drown out the static in my head. I kept seeing Dad's face, that flicker of panic when he saw the box. What had he gotten us into? Was it drugs? Mob stuff? Every crime show I'd ever binged flashed through my mind, each scenario worse than the last. Aunt Sarah met us at her door, her bathrobe cinched tight. Her face a mix of worry and exhaustion. "What's going on, Laura?" she asked as Mom hugged her quick and hard. "I'll explain later," Mom said. "Just keep them here. Don't let them out of your sight." I wanted to protest, to demand answers, but the look in Mom's eyes, haunted, fierce, shut me up. She kissed my forehead, then Jake's, and was gone before I could say goodbye. The door clicked shut, and I felt like a kid again, powerless and pissed off. Sleep didn't come easy at Aunt Sarah's. Her guest room smelled like lavender and mothballs, and the twin bed creaked every time I moved. Jake was on the floor in a sleeping bag, his snores the only sound breaking the silence. I couldn't stop thinking about Mom. Alone, facing whatever monster Dad had unleashed. At 2 a.m., I grabbed my phone and texted a friend from school, Mia. She's the nosy type who'd dig up dirt on anyone. "Ever heard of Mundial Logistics?" I typed, remembering a name scrawled in Dad's ledger. Her reply came fast, yeah, transport company. Sketchy, rumors say they're tied to cartels. Why? My stomach dropped. Cartels? I pictured Dad in his khakis and polo shirts, not some Scarface wannabe. I didn't text back. Morning came too soon, gray and heavy. Aunt Sarah made pancakes, but I just pushed them around my plate, the syrup pooling like blood. Jake kept checking his phone, probably hoping Mom would call. She didn't until 11:30, when she texted me, "I'm meeting someone at Cafe Margot. Stay put. Love you." My pulse spiked. That was the place from the mystery text. I wanted to scream at her to wait, to take us with her, but she was already gone, out of reach. Then I remembered something. Carlos, this tech geek from Mom's old teaching days who ran a shop downtown. She'd mentioned him once, how he'd fixed her laptop after Dad accidentally spilled coffee on it. If Mom was walking into a trap, she'd need backup, right? I found his number in her contacts, thank God for her habit of never deleting anything, and called. "Carlos, it's Emily, Laura Carter's daughter," I said, my voice trembling. "Mom's in trouble. Can you help?" He didn't hesitate. "Meet me at my store in 20. Bring whatever you've got." I didn't tell Jake or Aunt Sarah, just slipped out the back door, heart pounding like a war drum. Carlos's shop was a cluttered hole in the wall, all wires and blinking gadgets. He handed me a pen that wasn't a pen, a recorder, sleek and hidden. 6 hours of audio, he said, scribbling a demo on a notepad. "She'll need this." I nodded, clutching it like a lifeline, and begged him to get it to Mom before noon. He promised he would, no questions asked. Back at Aunt Sarah's, I paced the porch, guilt gnawing at me. I'd sent Mom into the lion's den with a gadget and a prayer. What if it wasn't enough? Then my phone buzzed again, another unknown number. Elisa Vega's a lie. Check Carter Transport's staff list. I froze. Who was Elisa? Why did they know so much? I bolted inside, grabbed Jake's laptop, and hacked into Dad's company site, easy, since he still used CarterFam99 as his password. No Elisa Vega anywhere, just a guy named Victor Mendiz, CFO for 12 years. My head spun. Was this a trick? A warning. Before I could figure it out, Jake burst in, phone in hand. "Mom just called. Some woman named Elisa says Dad's laundering money for criminals. She's got proof." His voice cracked, and I felt the floor drop out from under me. Money laundering? Criminals? Dad wasn't just a cheater or a thief, he was in bed with monsters, and now they were coming for us. I gripped the edge of the table, torn between wanting to save Mom and wanting to burn Dad's whole world down myself. The second Jake dropped that bombshell about Mom and Elisa, I felt like I'd been shoved off a skyscraper. Free falling into a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I'm Emily Carter, 16, and right then, my world wasn't just cracking, it was exploding. Jake's voice still echoed in Aunt Sarah's kitchen, his phone clutched like a lifeline. "Mom says Dad's laundering money for criminals." My hands shook as I gripped his laptop, the Carter Transport staff list glaring back at me. No Elisa Vega, just Victor Mendiz, a name that meant nothing yet everything. Betrayal didn't even cover it anymore. Dad had sold us out to monsters, and now they had Mom in their crosshairs. Before I could catch my breath, my phone lit up with a new text from Aunt Sarah's number. They tried to grab us from the school parking lot. "We're at a warehouse, help." My stomach lurched. Jake's eyes widened as I showed him, and then a photo pinged through him, Aunt Sarah, and me, tied up in some grimy industrial hellhole, a timestamp from 10 minutes ago. Another message followed, "Bring the evidence to the docks. Alone. 1 hour." I wanted to scream, to hurl the phone across the room, but panic locked me in place. They'd faked it, had to, but the threat was real. Mom was out there, and now they were closing in. "We've got to get to her," I choked out, shoving the recorder pen Carlos gave me into my pocket. Jake nodded, already grabbing his keys. We didn't tell Aunt Sarah, just bolted for his beat-up Jeep, peeling out of Willow Creek like we were in a Fast Furious chase scene. The docks were a half-hour away, all rusted cranes and salt-soaked air, a place I'd only seen on field trips to watch cargo ships. My mind raced. Dad's ledger, the USB, Elise's proof, it was all tied to mundial logistics, the cartel Mia had warned me about. I hated him so much it burned, but part of me still ached for the guy who'd taught me to throw a punch in the backyard, saying, "Just in case, kiddo." We screeched into the port lot, spotting Mom's Honda parked crooked near a chain-link fence. She was there, standing by a hulking warehouse, her face pale but fierce as she faced a woman, 50-ish, hair-streaked gray, radiating menace. Elena Vasquez, I'd bet, not Elisa. Then a man stepped out, Mateo Diaz, 60, silver hair slicked back, a gun gleaming in his hand like a prop from a gangster flick. My blood ran cold. "Stay here," I hissed at Jake, but he was already out, creeping closer. I followed, heart slamming against my ribs, the recorder on in my sleeve. "Hand it over, Laura," Elena barked, her voice like gravel. Mom clutched a USB, Dad's, from the box, and shook her head. "Not until my kids are safe." Diaz laughed, low and ugly, aiming his gun at her. "You don't call the shots here." That's when I saw them, Jake and Aunt Sarah, dragged from a van by two goons, ropes cutting into their wrists. It wasn't a bluff anymore. "Mom!" I yelled, sprinting forward, my sneakers skidding on wet concrete. Diaz swung his gun toward me, and I froze, 16 years old and staring down a barrel. "Emily, get back!" Mom shouted, but I couldn't. Jake's eyes locked on mine, terrified but defiant. Elena smirked, stepping closer. "The evidence, or she's first." My mind screamed. Dad's lies had led us here, his greed trading our lives for cash. I hated him, but I remembered his voice, hit hard, I lunged, stomping Diaz's foot with every ounce of fury I had, my sneaker grinding into his polished loafer. The docks were a half-hour away, all rusted cranes and salt-soaked air, a place I'd only seen on field trips to watch cargo ships. My mind raced. Dad's ledger, the USB, Elise's proof, it was all tied to mundial logistics, the cartel Mia had warned me about. I hated him so much it burned. But part of me still ached for the guy who'd taught me to throw a punch in the backyard, saying, "Just in case, kiddo." We screeched into the port lot, spotting Mom's Honda parked crooked near a chain-link fence. She was there, standing by a hulking warehouse, her face pale but fierce as she faced a woman, 50-ish, hair-streaked gray, radiating menace. Elena Vasquez, I'd bet, not Elisa. Then a man stepped out, Mateo Diaz, 60, silver hair slicked back, a gun gleaming in his hand like a prop from a gangster flick. My blood ran cold. "Stay here," I hissed at Jake, but he was already out, creeping closer. I followed, heart slamming against my ribs, the recorder on in my sleeve. "Hand it over, Laura," Elena barked, her voice like gravel. Mom clutched a USB, Dad's, from the box, and shook her head. "Not until my kids are safe." Diaz laughed, low and ugly, aiming his gun at her. "You don't call the shots here." That's when I saw them, Jake and Aunt Sarah, dragged from a van by two goons, ropes cutting into their wrists. It wasn't a bluff anymore. "Mom!" I yelled, sprinting forward, my sneakers skidding on wet concrete. Diaz swung his gun toward me, and I froze, 16 years old and staring down a barrel. "Emily, get back!" Mom shouted, but I couldn't. Jake's eyes locked on mine, terrified but defiant. Elena smirked, stepping closer. "The evidence, or she's first." My mind screamed. Dad's lies had led us here, his greed trading our lives for cash. I hated him, but I remembered his voice, hit hard, I lunged, stomping Diaz's foot with every ounce of fury I had, my sneaker grinding into his polished loafer. He yelped, the gun dipping, and Mom threw the USB at Elena, yelling, "Take it." Chaos erupted. Jake headbutted a goon, Aunt Sarah kicked another, and I ducked as Diaz swung at me, his fist grazing my hair. Mom tackled Elena, clawing for the USB, her nails leaving red streaks. Then, sirens, loud and close. Red and blue lights flooded the docks, feds swarming in like a SWAT team from a cop show. Diaz fired wild, a bullet ricocheting off a crate, and I hit the ground, tasting rust and salt. Someone tackled him, Dad, out of nowhere, blood soaking his shirt from a graze. "Get them out!" he roared, pinning Diaz as agents cuffed Elena. I crawled to Jake, cutting his ropes with a shard of glass, my hands slick with sweat and tears. Mom grabbed Aunt Sarah, and we ran, collapsing behind a stack of pallets as the feds took over. Dad was down, alive but bleeding, his eyes meeting mine, guilty, pain, something I couldn't name. I wanted to hate him forever, but my chest ached with a love I couldn't kill. The warehouse stank of gunpowder and betrayal, and I knew nothing would ever be the same. The warehouse erupted into a war zone, and I hit the deck as a bullet screamed past my head, splintering a crate just inches away. I'm Emily Carter, 16, and in that heartbeat, I thought it was over, my life, my family, everything, swallowed by the chaos Dad had unleashed. Gunpowder stung my nose, mixing with the salty dock air, while red and blue lights painted the night like a 4th of July gone wrong. I scrambled to Jake, my hands slippery with sweat as I sliced his ropes with a jagged piece of glass, my breath hitching when I saw blood on his wrist, not his, thank God, just a scrape. Mom dragged Aunt Sarah behind a stack of pallets, her face smeared with dirt and determination, and I collapsed beside them, my chest heaving. Dad was sprawled out there, wrestling Mateo Diaz until feds swarmed in, cuffing him and Elena as he bled from that graze on his shoulder. His eyes found mine through the madness, pleading, broken, and I couldn't tell if I wanted to save him or let him rot. 6 months later, the dust settled, but the scars didn't. Dad got 5 years in federal prison, money laundering, fraud, the works, and Carter Transport went belly up, its logo scrubbed from every truck like it had never existed. I sat on our front porch that crisp September morning, the air smelling like fallen leaves and second chances, watching Jake toss a football to himself in the yard. He'd enrolled at state, majoring in law now, swearing he'd fix the system that let Dad slide so long. Mom was inside, prepping for her first day back teaching cybersecurity at the community college. Ironic, right? Me, I'd joined the debate team, turning my anger into words that cut sharper than any knife. We'd rebuilt, piece by jagged piece, but the cracks still showed. That day in the warehouse kept replaying in my head like a horror movie I couldn't pause. I'd stomped Diaz's foot, channeling every ounce of rage Dad had sparked, and it worked, bought us seconds until the feds stormed in. But seeing Dad take that bullet, pinning Diaz down to protect us? It messed me up. I hated him, God, I hated him, for trading our lives for cash, for kissing Julia in that park like we were nothing. Yet there he was, bleeding for us, and that little girl inside me, the one who'd built birdhouses with him, wouldn't let go. I'd stare at the Polaroids on my dresser, fuss at the lake, him grinning with a fishing pole, and feel my throat tighten. How do you love someone who'd sell you out? How do you hate someone who'd die for you? We moved on, sort of. Mom sold the house, too many ghosts, and we rented a smaller place near Jake's campus, a cozy 2-bedroom with a tiny porch swing. She'd traded her flip-flops for sensible flats, her lectures now peppered with warnings about trusting too blindly. Jake and I chipped in for a gift that Christmas, a fountain pen, sleek and silver, engraved with Laura Carter, unbreakable. She cried when we gave it to her, the first time I'd seen her break since the docks, and we hugged her tight, the 3 of us a tripod standing strong. I started writing too, poems mostly, raw stuff about that night, one even winning a school contest. Reading it aloud at the assembly, my voice steady as the crowd clapped, I felt the weight lift, just a little.